In the 1950s and 60s, the city of Seoul built an elevated highway through the middle of the city. We know in retrospect that highways don't belong in city centers, but at the time, Seoul was rapidly modernizing and cars were the future. Plus, the Korean government was being advised, financed, and heavily influenced by Americans at the time, and you know they wouldn't suggest building anything other than car infrastructure. Over the next few decades, Seoul experienced extremely rapid growth, but downtown was struggling. There was serious traffic congestion on and around the highway, making the area polluted and unpleasant, and the population downtown dropped in half during the 1990s. The number of businesses decreased by over 20%, and the number of people working downtown also dropped in half. Because, as it turns out, the majority of people don't enjoy living, working, or shopping next to a car sewer. The freeway itself was also crumbling and had become unsafe, so a decision had to be made. Rebuild it or tear it down, and they made the correct decision to tear it down. But they didn't just remove the highway, they turned it into a river, and I'll get to that in a bit. I first heard about this project in the context of induced demand. This is the well-studied effect where building more highways and roads encourages more people to drive, which makes traffic worse. And I made a previous video about that if you'd like to learn more. The opposite of induced demand is known as traffic evaporation, the counterintuitive effect where removing roads or highways can actually make traffic better, not worse, and that is exactly what happened in Seoul. Before the highway was removed, the media, special interest groups, and even the traffic simulations made by the engineers claimed that there was going to be a traffic disaster. But when the Cheonggyecheong Expressway was removed, none of that happened. Within 3 years, motor vehicle traffic decreased by 45%. Metro ridership was up 3% and bus ridership up 15%, and there was no increase in travel time for drivers. Even though this data really just validated decades of urban planning research, it's still an incredible result, so I can see why this example is so often used by advocates, urban planners, and transportation engineers. But after visiting Cheonggyecheong myself, I actually think all that traffic stuff is literally the least interesting aspect of this project, and I believe that building this beautiful addition to the city would have been completely justified even if it made car traffic significantly worse. Plus, I morally object to municipal projects constantly being framed through the lens of how much it might inconvenience drivers. To me, that is the least important metric to consider when designing great urban places. Because they didn't just remove this highway, they made it into a beautiful linear park that has become a major attraction. The river has brought back life to downtown. Significantly more people are walking here now. There's been a massive drop in air pollution and noise pollution. Nitrogen dioxide levels dropped 35% and average summer temperatures dropped 3.5 degrees compared to neighboring streets. Business activity increased for the first time in years, and it spurred new residential and commercial developments. Wildlife diversity and populations increased significantly, and it has become one of the top tourist destinations in the city. The Cheonggyecheong Regeneration Project was so successful that Seoul has closed many more elevated highways, including this one that I also visited while I was there. So let me share my experiences visiting these great highway removal projects so you can see what's possible when a city removes cars to make places better for people. Before Cheonggyecheong was an elevated expressway, it used to be a river, so in a sense this river project is returning the area back to what it was before. The river had been an important place for centuries, but after decades of Japanese occupation and the Korean War, it was not doing well. By the 1950s, the river was heavily polluted and prone to flooding, and many informal settlements and shacks had been built along it. Seoul was rapidly urbanizing to accommodate a growing population, and even though very few people owned cars at the time, they wanted to build for the future and project an image of progress, and cars were the future. So replacing the polluted river with a modern elevated expressway probably seemed like a pretty good idea at the time. And it is wild how fast this place modernized. This is a picture of Cheonggyecheong in the early 1960s. And this is a picture from the late 1970s. That's crazy. But today it looks like this, and technically it is not a river. It's usually translated from Korean to English as a stream, and if you want to get pedantic, it's a tributary that flows into the Han River. But whatever you call it, it's a hell of a lot nicer than an elevated expressway. To get to Cheonggyecheong River, stream, I took the metro to Gwanhwamon Square, part of which was also recently pedestrianized. This part here used to be a busy road, but they closed it and made it a car-free plaza. It's much nicer with all the trees and a direct connection to what used to be an island stranded in the middle of the road. You can see in this stock footage what it looked like before, with the statues sandwiched between 10 lanes of car traffic. It's crazy to me how many cities have these big open areas with parks or culturally significant landmarks, and then they make them so unpleasant to be there because they're in the middle of the f***ing road. Closing one side of a boulevard like this is the first step to repairing these kinds of places, and more cities should be doing this. I still think the remaining road is way too big, but going from 10 lanes to 6 lanes is at least a step in the right direction. Fortunately, it was only a short walk along this unpleasant road to get to the start of the stream, and after crossing the street, we get to this small open area, and this interesting spiral art piece. The river starts at this fountain and waterfall. Apparently, there's only natural water here during the rainy season, and at other times it's pumped in. After walking down the stairs, the first thing I see is dozens of people sitting and reading. This is one of Seoul's outdoor libraries where people can borrow books to read outside. This is so cool. You're not going to do this next to a freeway. I also noticed these rocks that people use to cross to the other side of the stream. These have been installed in many places all along the stream, which is fun. Though in other places there are proper bridges in case you're not able or not willing to cross on the rocks. What amazed me is just how much effort they put into making every part of this stream interesting. There's so much variety as you walk along it, and it's clear that a lot of thought and care was put into its design. The start of the stream is made of stone and is very artificial feeling. But as I walked farther along, there were trees and rocks and grass. By the end of it, it looked so natural you'd think the stream had always been there. In some places, there's only the sound of the wind and flowing water, and you could almost forget you're in the middle of the city. There are several places along the stream where benches or seats have been installed. This one is next to a speaker playing soft piano music, which is weird, but I appreciate it. There are historic elements too, like this stone bridge that is over 600 years old. It was renovated and placed over the stream, though apparently 150 meters from its original location. Since the expressway was removed, there's been a huge increase in birds and fish. This was the biggest fish I found. I saw so many people out enjoying a walk along the stream or going for a run or just sitting and generally enjoying the fact that this isn't a car sewer anymore. Cycling is not allowed here, so I didn't see anyone on a bike, though as part of the project, bike lanes were installed on either side at road level. Walking along the stream felt very safe, and there were always lots of people around, and I saw security cameras along the walls as well. I also noticed these emergency ladders every so often along the stream. And I think they want you to know that when it rains heavily, the path will be closed. This is because the stream has some fairly sophisticated water management infrastructure built into it, designed to handle 200-year flood events. The walls have floodgates on the side that can be opened during very heavy rainfall, so that water from the surrounding streets can be drained here to avoid flooding the rest of the city. It only rained once during my trip to Seoul, and I visited the stream during that time. The stairs were closed and the flow of water was faster, but it wasn't anywhere close to overflowing. If I had to be critical of this project, the biggest thing I would complain about is accessibility. Because it's sunken down below street level, it feels disconnected from the rest of the neighborhood, which also means that the benefits of the stream don't overflow into the surrounding areas. Most of the access is by stairs, usually wherever a road crosses the stream. There are a few places that are accessible by wheelchair via extremely long ramps, but there are sometimes long distances between them. And every time you enter it from a metro station, you have to go up to ground level, cross the street, and then walk down into the river. It would be so great if there were some elevators or exits directly from the metro at the level of the stream, but I suspect these would be impossible to build while still allowing the stream to be flooded in the case of a major rainstorm. I think what surprised me the most, though, was just how nice this all was. I had heard about this project for years and I had seen photos of it, but it was still way nicer than I expected it to be. I was enjoying myself so much that I totally lost track of time and only managed to walk along about half of the 6-kilometer stream before it started to get dark. So I never got to see the spot where they left a few of the elevated highway pillars up as a reminder of what used to be here. I can understand now why this was such an expensive project. It cost 386 billion won to build, which was about 250 million euros at the time, which is not cheap. And before and during its construction, the project definitely had its detractors, but today, you'd be hard-pressed to find anybody in Seoul who would rather have this place turned back into a highway. And that's the thing, right? Whenever a great urban project is proposed, there are so many people who aggressively fight it. But once it's built, people love it and can't possibly imagine going back, because urban places are fundamentally better when they're designed for people instead of cars. I've seen this in cities all over the world, which is why I've started to call it the universal law of cities, which states, the more car-friendly a place is, the shittier it is to be there. If we always designed urban places with this law in mind, our cities would be so much better. Thankfully, the success of this project made it significantly easier to get public support for other great projects to reclaim space from cars in Seoul. I visited another elevated highway that was closed, but this time they didn't tear it down. Instead, they made it a pedestrian walkway. This is Solo 7017. That's 70 from 1970, the year the highway was built, and 17 from 2017, the year it was converted to a walkway. This overpass is located right at Seoul Station, the central train station for commuter trains, high-speed trains, and connections to the metro and local buses. For years, the station has been cut off from some of the neighborhoods nearby because of the highway and the busy roads around it. So Solo 7017 was constructed to connect both sides of the station area. And these neighborhoods in the east have been improving significantly over the past few years, with more and more streets getting restrictions for car traffic or pedestrianized completely. So there was definitely value in connecting these neighborhoods to the train station and the neighborhoods to the west. The east side of the path starts here at ground level. You can clearly see how this would have been the entrance to an overpass for cars. And it's kind of fun to walk up this enormous ramp to get onto the walkway. At each end, there's a map that shows the layout of the walkway and the surrounding area. On this side, there are several buildings that are connected directly to the walkway, including the hotel I was staying at for the night, which was nice. The entire overpass is covered with plants and trees, and they're all individually labeled, which makes it almost like a tree museum, though this one is just some garden of green leaves. This is really interesting because the plants and trees change as you go along, meaning each section feels different. It's amazing how this part looks so much different from this part just because of the trees. There was a lot of thought put into all this. And these trees also provide some much needed shade in parts, which is great. Along the overpass, there are some surprisingly nice rest stops. They're air conditioned inside and they have seating and big windows. And each one has stairs that you can take to a lookout on the top. This one was covered in vines. It was genuinely nice up here. This one is a cafe where you can get tea and coffee, and then drink them inside or on the roof. And if you're not interested in paying for drinks, there are water fountains too. Just outside of the cafe, there's this communal pool for soaking your feet, which is a Korean thing I just can't get into, but it's great that they have it. There are a few other random things they've installed, like this trampoline area for kids and a public piano. There are also these round glass windows that are supposed to let you see the traffic below, including this really big one. But I couldn't see anything through them. These were probably a better idea in theory than in practice. There are also 3 of these big cylinders called peeping pots, and if you look inside, there are videos playing, which my camera could never properly focus on, but you get the idea. These are definitely weird, so I like them. There are a lot of security cameras along this overpass on posts like this one, way more than I saw walking along Cheonggyecheong Stream. There are also emergency call buttons and a first aid booth. And there were a couple of security guards walking back and forth too. Thankfully, they didn't have a problem with an old white guy filming way too much, but then I wasn't the only white guy with a professional camera, so they probably see it a lot. While this project is nowhere near as comprehensive as Cheonggyecheong Stream, there was still a lot of thought put into it, and it's so much more than just a way to walk to the other side of the train station. On the sides of the overpass are these glass walls that do a surprisingly good job of dampening the noise of the traffic below. I just found this one segment with a gap in the glass wall. It's like they wanted people to look down and see the road below, as if to say, "Here's the shitty road, you don't have to cross on foot. You're welcome." And this really is a terrible road. I would hate to have to cross this monstrosity at ground level. Near the train station is this area called Docking Seoul, the area around an old spiral car ramp that is now for art exhibits. At the top is this grassy square, which was great on a nice day like this. And there's easy access to this parking garage if that's your thing. On the west end, there are multiple paths to take, off-ramps if you will. Some of these lead to elevators and stairs to go down, while this one slowly descends to ground level. The streets next to the overpass were full of people and the shops and restaurants were busy. Cars have been tamed here, so it's much less disruptive than many other streets in Seoul. And once again, the businesses in these shops are doing much better since the highway was decommissioned because it's enjoyable to be here now. The universal law of cities, right? People like being in places without a lot of cars, and since it's the people who buy things, businesses do better when there are fewer cars. Fundamentally, urban highways need to be removed. They don't belong in the middle of cities. They funnel huge amounts of traffic into busy downtown areas, they divide neighborhoods and destroy livability, they pollute the local environment and make cities less economically productive, and they don't even fix traffic congestion. Seoul is demonstrating what needs to happen with these outdated 20th century infrastructure mistakes by building projects like this. The only real complaint I have about Solo 7017 is that it's not well connected to public transit. For example, this horrific road has a BRT station in the middle of it, very close to the overpass. But there's no direct connection from here. So you have to go down this escalator and then cross a very busy road to get to the BRT. So it would be nice if there was a direct connection from the walkway. And while the overpass is quite close to Seoul Station, it's also not connected. You can get to the station this way, though you need to pass through the parking garage and the Lotte hypermarket. I opted for using these stairs, which brings you down to this area near exit 2 of the metro, and a short walk to the train station. But beyond those minor gripes, I was impressed once again by how much thought and time was put into this project. They didn't need to make it this nice. They could have just made it a utilitarian walkway that made it a little easier to cross over the road to the train station. And Cheonggyecheong didn't need to be this elaborate stream. They could have just built a concrete canal and it would have achieved the same goal of flood prevention infrastructure. But then they could film sick Hollywood car chase scenes in it. Instead, it's just become a regular filming location for almost every K-drama, and where's the fun in that? And I think that's what's impressed me the most about these projects. Seoul didn't just remove their urban freeways, which itself is something most politicians in other cities can't find the courage to do. They went even further by building genuinely great urban places that are destinations unto themselves, providing so much value to the city and making it a better place to live. Seoul still has a lot of work ahead to undo decades of rapid car-centric development. There are far too many extremely wide roads, and many urban places still allow too many cars. But I also saw a lot of great urban places too, and several parts of the city were much nicer than the last time I visited Seoul. They've also gone from not having any metro at all in 1970 to having one of the largest metro systems in the world today. So in Seoul, rapid change is possible. It's time for other car-centric cities to catch up. If you want to make a positive impact on the world, it might be worth choosing a career that will help make that happen. 80,000 Hours is a nonprofit organization that helps people find careers solving the world's most pressing problems, and it's completely free. Everything 80,000 Hours publishes is based on careful research and consultation with experts, and because they take this evidence-based approach, they can make legitimate recommendations to questions like, where should I work if I actually want to make a positive difference in the world? What are the most pressing problems facing humanity today, and how could we solve them? What can I do today to start planning a fulfilling career? 80,000 Hours hosts a job board with hundreds of currently open high-impact career opportunities. Or, if you got some ideas already, they offer free one-on-one advice to help you switch paths. They have other resources too, like a podcast which hosts in-depth conversations with experts about major global problems. Fans of NJB might be interested in their recent episode about the challenges of building new housing and how to work around NIMBYs. I'll leave a link in the description. If this sounds good to you, then I recommend checking them out at 80,000hours.org/notjustbikes or by clicking the link in the description. You can sign up to their newsletter to get a free copy of their in-depth career guide, No Strings Attached, because 80,000 Hours is a non-profit organization that's completely funded by philanthropic donations. Their only goal is to help you find a fulfilling high-impact career. So check them out at 80,000hours.org/notjustbikes. Thanks for watching, and thanks to 80,000 Hours for sponsoring this video.